The jungle was alive with strange sounds, chirps, growls, whispers carried by the wind. Leo moved carefully through the thick green plants, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, damp ground. The air was warm and filled with the scent of moss and wildflowers. This planet, called Chirex 4, was untouched by cities and machines. Leo was here for research, studying the plant life for Earth's science program. But today felt different. Something was watching him. The jungle was never quiet, but now, it was silent. He stepped over a root, then paused. A strange noise, like a faint groan, came from the bushes to his left. It wasn't an animal, it sounded like a voice. Carefully, he pushed the leaves aside and froze. There, lying half-buried under broken branches and thick vines, was a woman. No, not a human. Woman. Her skin was smooth but faintly bluish, and she had strange pointed ears. She wore armor that was cracked and dirty. Her face was sharp and proud, even as she lay unconscious. Blood trickled down her side. Leo's heart raced. "An alien," he whispered. He looked around quickly. Was it a trap? But she didn't move. Her chest rose and fell slowly. She was alive, but barely. Leo knew he shouldn't get involved. He was just a researcher. If someone had attacked her, they might still be nearby. But then he looked at her again. She was alone, wounded, and dying. With a deep breath, Leo dropped his backpack and pulled out his small med kit. "I hope this works on you," he muttered. He cleaned her wound and wrapped a bandage around it. She flinched at his touch but didn't wake. Her body was strong, muscular, but now weak. Her armor had strange symbols on it, and a broken blade rested beside her. He built a small shelter using nearby leaves and sticks, covering them both in case it rained. Hours passed. Leo kept watch, unsure what to expect. He made a small fire, with dry wood, and boiled some water. The jungle remained quiet. Then as the night fell and stars lit up the sky above the trees, she stirred. Her eyes opened, sharp and bright, like a hawk's. She tried to sit up but winced and fell back with a hiss. "Stay down," Leo said softly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "You're hurt." She looked at him, confused and cautious. "You... human?" "Yes," he nodded. "Name's Leo. I found you here." She studied him in silence, her breathing shallow. Then, in broken English, she spoke. "They are hunting. Me. Must not find me." Leo frowned. "Who?" "Empire," she whispered before closing her eyes again. Leo didn't know much about the Galactic Empire, but he had heard stories. They ruled many parts of space with fear and power. If they were hunting her, it meant she had done something to anger them, and if they found her here, they might destroy everything around, including him. Still, Leo couldn't leave her. Something in her voice, in her face, told him she was not evil, just afraid, just alone. He stayed with her all night, checking her, bandage and keeping the fire low. He watched the skies, hoping no ships would appear. In the early hours of morning, she woke again. "I am Vena," she said, her voice clearer now. "I'm Leo. You're safe. For now." She looked around. "Why? Help me?" Leo shrugged. "Because you needed help. Isn't that enough?" Vena didn't answer. She stared at the trees above, her eyes full of thoughts. Leo noticed the wound was healing slowly. He gave her water, and she drank carefully. "We need to move," she said. "Empire does not stop. They will come." Leo nodded. "We'll find a better hiding place. I know this jungle well." Vena gave him a strange look, part surprise, part respect. "You are not like other humans. Maybe you're not like other aliens either," Leo said with a small smile. Vena allowed herself a brief smile, then winced again. "Too weak to walk." "Then I'll carry you," Leo said. She raised an eyebrow. "You? Carry me?" carried heavier things, he joked, lifting her slowly. Besides, you saved yourself by surviving this long. I'm just helping you a little more. Vena rested her head against his shoulder, silent but awake. As Leo stepped into the deeper parts of the jungle, he knew one thing. His quiet research mission was over. Whatever this alien woman had done, whatever danger followed her, he was now a part of it. Leo pushed through thick vines and stepped over tangled roots as he carefully carried Vena in his arms. She was heavier than she looked, but Leo didn't stop. He had traveled these parts of the jungle before during his research and knew of a hidden cave near a waterfall. It wasn't far now. Just a bit more, he told himself. Vena stayed quiet, her arms loosely around his shoulders, her breathing shallow. Every now and then she opened her eyes to scan their surroundings. She was alert even in pain. Leo could tell she was trained, possibly a soldier or warrior. When they reached the cave, Leo laid her down gently on a soft patch of dry moss. Water dripped from the rocks above, creating a peaceful sound in the silence. "This place safe?" Vena asked, her voice weak. "For now," Leo said. "I used to rest here during long hikes. No one knows about it." Vena looked at him and gave a small nod. "Good." Leo got to work. He unpacked some of his supplies, dried food, water filters, a small flashlight, and his solar charger. He made a small fire again, careful to hide the smoke. Vena watched silently, studying him like a predator trying to understand a new creature. "You said someone was hunting you," Leo finally asked. "The Empire?" Vena slowly sat up against the wall of the cave. "Yes, I was a scout in their army. I followed orders, but one day they gave an order I could not follow." Leo handed her a water pouch. "What kind of order?" She drank, before answering. "Destroy a village. It had no weapons. Just families, children. I refused. They called me a traitor." Leo's jaw tightened. "So they came after you?" "Yes," she said. "My own squad turned on me. I escaped their ship and crashed here. They will not stop until I am gone." Leo looked into the fire, thinking. He was just a human researcher. He wasn't trained for this, but leaving her now felt wrong. She had chosen to do what was right. And now, she was paying the price for it. "We'll figure something out," he said. "We'll stay hidden until you're strong enough to move." "You risk much by helping me," Vena said. Leo shrugged. "Sometimes doing the right thing means taking a risk." Vena studied him for a long moment, then looked away. "Your kind surprises me." "The feeling's mutual," Leo said with a smile. The next day, Vena was stronger. She walked a few steps outside the cave with Leo's help. She showed him how to cover their tracks using jungle leaves and water. Her experience as a hunter became clear. She knew how to listen to the jungle's sounds, how to tell if something wasn't right. And that's when they both heard it, high-pitched beeping in the distance. Leo and Vena crouched down. "Drones," she whispered. "Empire scouts." Leo's heart pounded. "They're close?" Vena nodded. "They use sound and heat to track. If we stay still, maybe they pass." They waited in silence as the mechanical buzz of the drones grew louder. One flew right above, the treetops scanning the area. Leo could see its blinking lights through the leaves. Then it paused. Leo held his breath. But the drone finally moved on. After it passed, Vena let out a slow breath. "They're searching the whole jungle. They won't stop." "We'll need to stay on the move," Leo said. Vena looked down at her arm, still bandaged. "I'm not ready to fight yet." "Then we hide smarter," Leo replied. "I've studied this jungle for weeks. There are places even drones can't reach." Vena raised her eyebrow. "Show me." Over the next few days, Leo and Vena moved from one hiding spot to another, under thick tree roots, inside hollow logs, and behind cliffs covered in vines. Each time they avoided drones and patrols by only a few minutes. The Empire was getting closer. During one quiet evening, Vena said, "You could have left many times. Why stay?" Leo poked the fire with a stick. "Because if I were the one hurt, I'd hope someone would help me." Vena was silent for a while. "On my world, trust is earned through battle. But you earned mine with kindness. Leo looked at her. We don't have to be the same to do what's right. Vena gave a faint smile. Perhaps your kind is not as weak as the Empire says. Thanks? Leo laughed softly, but deep inside, he knew things were getting worse. The Empire was moving faster. They weren't just searching, they were hunting, and Vena's time was running out. The sun peeked through the thick jungle canopy as Leo and Vena sat quietly by a small stream. The air was heavy with the scent of damp leaves, and distant bird-like creatures chirped in the trees. They had gone 2 days without being spotted, moving carefully from one hiding place to another. But the drones kept coming. The Empire wasn't giving up. Vena crouched by the water, her reflection dancing in the ripples. Her body was healing, thanks to Leo's help and his human medicine, but the pain was still there, deep in her muscles and her mind. Leo knelt beside her, filling a bottle. How's the leg? Vena touched the bandaged area gently. Better, I can walk now. But not fight. Leo smiled. Then we keep hiding, and moving. Fighting is our last option. Vena looked at him. You are not like other humans I met during raids. They feared us. You don't. Leo shrugged. I've never been in a war. I came here to study plants, not people. She nodded slowly. Still, you didn't run. Leo glanced around, lowering his voice. You said the Empire is hunting you because you refused to follow orders. That took courage. I broke a command, she said quietly. In the Empire, that's the same as betrayal. Leo looked at her. You did the right thing. Some orders aren't worth following. For a long moment, they both sat silently. The jungle moved around them, alive and wild, but their small space felt peaceful. That evening, they reached a narrow ridge where the trees grew so close that even drones couldn't fly between them. Leo called it the hollow curtain. Thick vines draped over stone walls and bent trees, creating a natural shelter. He had discovered it weeks ago while mapping plants. It was perfect for rest. Vena examined the area carefully. You've studied this place well. I take notes on everything I find, Leo replied, showing her a small journal. Plants, animal trails, safe water spots, even where the ground is soft. She flipped through the pages, surprised. You are not a warrior, but your skills are useful. Leo smiled. I guess science can be powerful too. Vena smirked faintly. Maybe. They set up camp in the hollow curtain. Leo used branches and large leaves to build a cover. Vena, even in pain, helped him strengthen the walls with tight knots. She taught him how to use tree sap as glue and which roots were edible. For the first time, Leo saw her not as just a soldier, but as a person. Did you always want to be a huntress? He asked that night while sitting near the fire. Vena's eyes stared into the flames. My people are born into roles. I was trained to track and kill. But I often wondered, what if I was more than just a weapon? Leo nodded slowly. On Earth, we call that free will, choosing your path. I never had that, she said. Until now. Leo looked at her seriously. You have it now. You chose not to follow that cruel order. That means something. Vena's voice was quiet. But I'm alone now. A target. You're not alone anymore, Leo replied. She looked at him for a long time, then nodded once. Then we survived together. The next day, they moved deeper into the jungle. Vena used her tracking skills to avoid Empire patrols. Leo used his knowledge to detect drone paths based on their heat signals. They worked together, two beings from different worlds yet perfectly in sync. At one point, they came across a broken Empire probe caught in tree branches. Leo studied its circuits. I think we can use its parts, maybe send a signal. Not to the Empire, but maybe to your people. Vena's eyes widened. If the message reaches my tribe, they will come. But we must be careful. Empire listens too. Then we'll build a decoy, Leo said. Send one signal to confuse them, and another with real coordinates. Vena smiled. Smart. That night, while Leo worked on the signal device, Vena stood watch. She kept one hand on her blade even though it was cracked. Her senses were sharp. Her eyes scanned every tree and shadow. Leo looked up at her. Do you ever rest? She gave a light laugh. Not when being hunted. He nodded. Then I'll stay up too. You're not the only one protecting someone anymore. For the first time since they met, Vena truly smiled. Not out of duty or pride, but something softer. Leo didn't say anything. He just smiled back and kept working, knowing that something was changing between them. They were not just allies now. They were becoming a team. The jungle was unusually quiet the next morning. The usual sounds of birds and insects were missing, replaced by an unsettling stillness. Leo, standing at the entrance of their shelter, peered through the thick trees. The air was thick with tension. Something's wrong, he muttered under his breath. Vena stood next to him, her sharp eyes scanning the horizon. She had been alert since they woke up, and now Leo could see why. Her instincts, honed from years of being a warrior, had picked up on something he hadn't noticed. Danger was close. What do you feel? Leo asked, lowering his voice. The Empire is closer. Too close, Vena replied, her voice steady but full of concern. I can feel the ground vibrating from their machines. They're coming. Leo's heart skipped a beat. The Empire's soldiers were relentless, and he knew that if they found them, both of them would be in danger. Can we hide? Leo asked. Vena didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked down at the jungle floor, studying the footprints and broken twigs. The ground is too soft. They'll follow the trail. We need to move. Without waiting for Leo's response, she gathered her things quickly, securing her blade and readying herself to move. Leo followed her lead, his own pack slung over his shoulder. He felt the weight of the situation pressing on him. They couldn't stay here any longer. The Empire was coming, and they had no choice but to leave. Vena was already moving ahead, her silent movements swift and efficient. Leo struggled to keep up with her pace, but he didn't complain. He knew better than to slow her down. The jungle was dense, and the more ground they covered, the safer they'd be. They traveled in silence for hours, Leo doing his best to keep up as Vena led the way through the dense undergrowth. The air was thick with humidity, and the sound of their footsteps was muffled by the thick moss and leaves beneath their feet. But even through the silence, Leo could hear something else. The faint buzzing hum of drones overhead. The Empire was searching for them. I think they've found us, Leo whispered. Vena didn't look back. Stay quiet. They'll think. We're further ahead. We move now. They kept to the shadows of the trees, moving cautiously as they made their way toward higher ground. The higher they climbed, the harder it would be for the drones to track them. Leo knew this jungle well enough to recognize the path Vena was taking. It was an old scouting trail used by the native people. It would be a risky route, but it was their best chance. After a few more hours, they reached the top of a hill where the trees were sparse. From here, they could see for miles in every direction, the jungle stretching out like a sea of green below them. But as Leo looked around, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. Several Empire dropships flying overhead, their engines buzzing loudly as they scoured the area. Vena, who had been watching the skies, spoke softly. They're closing in on us. We don't have much time. Leo's mind raced. He knew they couldn't outrun the Empire forever. The drones were too fast and the dropships were far too powerful. They had to make a stand. But how? Vena noticed the look on his face. You're thinking too much. Focus. We need to move. Leo snapped out of his thoughts. Right. We'll find shelter higher up. There's a cave system near here hidden in the cliffs. It's a long shot, but it's the only place I know that can hide us. Vena nodded. Lead the way. They descended the hill, moving as quickly and quietly as they could. The jungle was dense with vines and branches, but Vena seemed to glide through it effortlessly while Leo struggled to keep up. His heart pounded with fear, and his mind raced with thoughts of what might happen if they didn't make it to the cave in time. When they reached the cliffside, Leo breathed a sigh of relief. The entrance to the cave was hidden by thick vines and moss, and if they could make it inside, they might be safe for a while. But just as they approached the entrance, Leo froze. A voice shouted from behind them, "Stop right there!" Leo turned around to see a group of Empire soldiers emerging from the jungle, their weapons raised. The soldiers were heavily armored, their faces obscured by helmets. But Leo could see the malice in their eye, even from a distance. Vena reached for her blade, but Leo stopped her. "No, we don't fight, we hide." With one swift motion, Leo yanked Vena into the cave, pulling the vines back to reveal the narrow passageway. They squeezed through, just as the soldiers reached the cliff's edge. Leo's heart hammered in his chest as he listened to the sound of the soldiers searching the area. "We're not safe yet," Vena whispered. Leo nodded. "I know, but at least we're out of sight." For now, they were safe. But Leo knew that the Empire wouldn't stop. They would come for Vena, and they would stop at nothing to capture her. He glanced at her, his mind racing. They needed help, and fast. "Let's make that signal," Leo said. "We have to get word out to your people." Vena looked at him, a grim determination in her eyes. "They might not come in time, we're on our own now." Leo swallowed hard. "Then we fight, together." The cave was cold, the walls damp and echoing with the sound of dripping water. Leo and Vena crouched near the narrow entrance, waiting. The Empire soldiers had passed by the cliff, but they were still out there, searching. It wouldn't be long before they realized the cave was their best hiding spot. Leo looked at the small device he had been working on. It was the broken part of the Empire probe they had found earlier. He had taken it apart, trying to repair it with what he knew. It wasn't easy. The technology was far more advanced than anything he had ever worked with, but after hours of careful tinkering, he had managed to get it to work. He turned it on. A soft beep echoed in the cave. "It's working," Leo said, a slight edge of hope in his voice. "We'll send a signal to your people. They'll know we're here." Vena stood beside him, her eyes fixed on the device. "They will hear the signal, but it may not be enough. The Empire is too close. They will stop at nothing to capture me." "We don't have much choice," Leo replied, glancing nervously at the cave's entrance. "If we don't try, we'll have nothing left." Vena didn't say anything. She understood the risks as well as Leo did, maybe even more. She had been running from the Empire for days, fighting against their relentless pursuit. Every time, she thought she was safe. They found her again. The device emitted another beep, louder this time, sending out a signal through the jungle. Leo adjusted the frequency, aiming it toward the farthest reaches of the galaxy. "It's done," he said, taking a step back. "Now we wait." Vena stood motionless, her gaze distant. She wasn't looking at the signal. She was listening to the jungle outside, her senses trained to pick up the slightest sound. The Empire's soldiers had to be close by, and they were getting more aggressive with every hour. "We don't have much time," Vena said, her voice low and serious. "The Empire will be back soon. We must move, or they will catch us here." Leo nodded. He could feel the tension in his own muscles, his body aching from hours of running and hiding. His mind was tired, but he pushed the exhaustion aside. Couldn't afford to rest now. They needed to move. Leo grabbed his pack and began organizing their supplies. He knew the cave was not a long-term solution. They had to keep moving, find another safe spot, and hope that Vena's people would hear the signal and come. "Let's go," Leo said, looking at Vena. "We'll head to the high cliffs. It's harder to track us there, and we can see if anyone's coming." Vena nodded, silently agreeing. She picked up her blade, ready to fight if necessary. They both knew it was not just a matter of running anymore. They were fighting for survival. They moved quickly and quietly, stepping through the narrow cave entrance and back into the thick jungle. The trees here were older, their trunks twisted and tall, creating a natural barrier against any outside surveillance. Leo had always admired the way the jungle could hide its secrets. It had its own rhythm, its own patterns. But now, it was a battleground. Every sound, every movement was a potential threat. Leo's heart raced as he followed Vena through the dense undergrowth. She led the way with ease, her steps light and sure. He was doing his best to keep up, but his body was growing more tired with each step. They climbed higher into the jungle, up toward the cliffs. The view from the top was breathtaking. Leo had seen this spot before, an old overlook where the jungle met the sky. It was a perfect vantage point. Vena stopped at the edge, scanning the area below. "There, look," she said, pointing to a clearing in the jungle. Leo squinted into the distance. There, on the far side of the clearing, he could make out the faint outline of an Empire dropship. It was hovering low to the ground, its engines rumbling softly. Leo's stomach twisted. "They're here," he said, his voice tight with worry. "We need to hurry." Vena moved faster now, her pace quickening as she led him toward a narrow ridge that led to a hidden passage. Leo followed close behind, glancing over his shoulder at the distant dropship. It was getting closer. "Keep moving," Vena urged. They reached the ridge and began to climb. The rocks were sharp and the path was narrow, but Vena's experience in navigating dangerous terrain made her movements swift and precise. Leo struggled to keep up, his fingers slipping on the wet stones. His legs were sore from the constant movement, but he couldn't afford to stop. Not now. They finally reached the top of the ridge where a small cave entrance awaited them. The passage was tight, but it was well hidden, and it led deep into the heart of the cliffs. Leo turned to look behind them one last time. The Empire dropship was now hovering directly above the clearing, its searchlights scanning the area below. He felt a rush of adrenaline and fear, knowing that they were so close to being caught. Vena looked at him and gave a slight nod. "We wait here. If they follow, we fight." Leo didn't argue. They had no choice. They were on their own now, relying on each other to survive. He didn't know if the signal had reached Vena's people, but all they could do now was hope. The cave was cold and narrow, with only the sound of their breathing filling the space. Leo and Vena crouched near the entrance, their eyes fixed on the view outside. The Empire's dropship was still hovering in the clearing below, its searchlights cutting through the trees. Leo's heart raced, but he knew they couldn't stay in the open much longer. "We can't stay here," he whispered to Vena. "They'll find us." Vena's sharp eyes never left the dropship. "Not yet. Wait until they pass. Then we move again." Leo nodded, but his mind was already racing. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. They had been running and hiding for days, but now it seemed like they were out of options. The Empire was too close, and they couldn't keep dodging them forever. They needed help. "I wish I could have done more," Leo said quietly. "I didn't expect it to get this bad." Vena turned her gaze toward him, her expression unreadable. "You've done more than most would. You stayed when you didn't have to." Leo looked down at the ground. "I'm just a researcher. This wasn't what I signed up for." Vena's voice softened slightly. "You may not be a soldier, but you fought beside me. That's more than any weapon can do." Leo didn't know how to respond to that. He wasn't a fighter, he was just trying to survive. But in that moment, as he looked at Vena, who had risked everything to do the right thing, he realized that he had become more than just an observer in this fight. He was a part of it. The rumble of the dropship's engines grew louder as it passed over the ridge, but it didn't stop. The searchlights scanned the jungle, moving back and forth. Leo's eyes followed the movement and he felt a slight sense of relief. They had a small window of time. "Now," Vena whispered. Without another word, she rose to her feet and moved swiftly toward the back of the cave. Leo followed, his heart still pounding in his chest. They had to keep moving, but they couldn't risk being seen by the Empire. The two of them slipped through the narrow passageway, moving carefully in the dim light. The path twisted and turned, leading deeper into the heart of the cliffs. Leo's muscles ached from the climb, but he pushed forward, knowing that their only chance was to stay one step ahead. At the end of the passage, the cave opened up into a small chamber. Leo scanned the area quickly, making sure there was no sign of danger. He turned to Vena, who was already kneeling by a rock wall examining something. "What is it?" Leo asked. Vena didn't answer immediately. She touched the stone, then pressed her hand against a hidden switch. A section of the wall slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel leading further into the mountain. "A hidden path," she said quietly. "This was used by my people. It leads out of the jungle." Leo felt a surge of hope. This could be their way out. "How do we know it's safe?" Vena stood up, her gaze steady. "It's our only chance." Without another word, they both stepped into the tunnel, the heavy stone door sliding shut behind them. The air in the tunnel was cool and stale, but it felt like a small victory. They had found a way out. Now they just had to keep moving. The tunnel twisted and turned, but Vena led the way with ease. Leo followed closely behind, trying to stay as quiet as possible. His mind kept going over their options. They could try to contact Vena's Pio, pull again, but the Empire was too close. They had to get out of the jungle before they were cornered. After what felt like hours, they reached a dead end. Leo's heart sank. There was no way out. But then Vena moved to the side and pressed a hidden button in the wall. The stone shifted, revealing a narrow passage leading to the outside. Leo blinked in surprise. "How did you know about this?" Vena smiled faintly. "I told you. This was used by my people." They crawled through the narrow passage and emerged into the open. The jungle stretched out before them, but the view was different from what Leo was used to. They were on a high cliff now, overlooking the vast expanse of the jungle below. In the distance, Leo could just make out the Empire's dropships hovering over the trees, searching for them. Vena didn't hesitate. She turned and started moving, leading the way along the cliff's edge. Leo followed her, keeping his eyes on the jungle below. They had to move fast. The Empire would be searching every corner of the jungle for them. They moved silently, using the cover of the cliffs and the thick foliage to hide their movements. As they crept along, Leo could feel the weight of their situation pressing down on him. They were running out of time. Finally, they reached a narrow path that led into the forest. Vena paused, listening carefully. Leo followed her gaze and saw a small ship in the distance, an old transport vessel barely visible through the trees. "That's it," Vena said, her voice tight. "We can reach that ship. It's our only chance." Leo nodded. It was their last hope. They had to get to that ship before the Empire found them. With one last look at the jungle behind them, they ran. Leo's legs burned as they sprinted through the thick jungle, ducking under low-hanging branches and pushing through vines that seemed to appear out of nowhere. The sounds of the Empire's dropships were growing louder behind them, their engines humming ominously as they searched the dense forest below. The last thing Leo wanted was to be caught out in the open, so he pushed forward, trusting Vena to lead the way. They were close now. Leo could see the ship in the distance, a small transport vessel partially hidden behind the trees. It looked old, with patches of rust on its metal surface, but to them, it was their salvation. It was their only way out of this jungle, alive. "Stay low," Vena whispered, her voice sharp and urgent. Leo nodded, keeping as quiet as possible. His heart thudded in his chest, and every footstep felt like it might echo through the trees. They had to be careful. One wrong move and they'd be exposed. Vena moved ahead, her steps light and quick. She was a skilled hunter, trained to move through the jungle without making a sound. Leo did his best to follow her, doing his best to stay hidden behind the thick trunks of the trees. They reached the ship just as a drop of sweat dripped down Leo's forehead. His breath was heavy, his body exhausted from the sprint. He glanced over his shoulder but didn't see the Empire forces yet. He exhaled in relief. The ship was a small, weathered transport vessel with a large hatch at the back. There were no guards around, but that didn't mean they were safe. The Empire's patrols could be nearby. Vena signaled for Leo to stay back. She approached the ship cautiously, her eyes scanning the surroundings. Leo stood still, trying to steady his breath as he watched her. He had seen her in action before, quick, precise, and dangerous, but this time there was a different look in her eyes. It was fear. Fear that the Empire would find them before they could escape. Vena pressed her hand against the ship's control panel, and after a moment, the back hatch slowly creaked open. She stepped inside, and Leo followed, keeping low as he entered the ship. Inside, the ship was dimly lit, with wires hanging from the ceiling and broken panels scattered across the floor. It looked like it had been abandoned for years, but it didn't matter. It was still their best chance to get out of the jungle. Vena moved quickly to the cockpit and Leo followed. She sat down in the pilot's seat and began flipping switches, her hands moving expertly over the controls. Leo watched her for a moment before asking, "Can you fly this thing?" Vena didn't look up from the controls. "I can fly anything," she said, her voice calm and steady. "But we need to get out of here fast." Leo's eyes darted to the small viewport in front of them. He could see the jungle stretching out beneath them, and in the distance the Empire's dropships were closing in. They didn't have much time. "Do you think your people got the signal?" Leo asked, his voice tight with worry. Vena's hands moved faster on the controls. "I hope so. They should have heard it. But if not, we're on our own." Leo swallowed hard, a knot forming in his stomach. The Empire was close, and they needed to move. "Then let's go." Vena nodded, and with a deep breath she pressed a button. The engines roared to life, the ship's hull vibrating as it powered up. Leo felt the ship lift off the ground, and for a moment, he allowed himself to relax. But the sense of relief was short-lived. "Engines are online," Vena said, glancing at the controls. "Now we just need to break through the jungle canopy." Leo peered out the window, watching the trees pass by as they flew higher. The jungle floor was quickly disappearing beneath them, and they were rising fast. The ship's engines were loud, but they had to push through. The Empire's ships would hear them soon. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the air, followed by the unmistakable sound of laser fire. Leo's eyes went wide as he turned to see an Empire dropship banking toward them. It had spotted them. "Hold on," Vena shouted. She pulled the ship into a sharp turn, narrowly avoiding a barrage of laser blasts. The ship lurched violently, throwing Leo back into his seat. He gripped the armrests, his heart racing. The dropship was fast, and it wasn't letting up. Another round of laser fire shot past them, narrowly missing the ship's tail. "Can you outrun it?" Leo asked, his voice tense. Vena's eyes were focused on the controls. "I'm trying." The ship jolted again as another blast hit the hull, sending sparks flying from the console. Leo gritted his teeth, watching as Vena maneuvered the ship through the thick cloud cover, trying to shake off the Empire's pursuit. They were losing altitude, and the ship's engines were struggling to keep up. Leo glanced out the window again, watching as the Empire's dropship closed in, its weapons primed for another shot. "We can't take another hit like that," Leo said, panic rising in his chest. "We need to get out of here." Vena didn't answer. She was too focused on flying the ship, her hands steady as she pulled them into another sharp dive. The Empire's ship followed, its lasers firing relentlessly. Leo closed his eyes for a moment, praying they'd make it. This wasn't the life he had signed up for, but now, it was the only life he had. And then, something unexpected happened. A sudden flash of light lit up the sky, and another ship appeared in the distance, a much larger one with weapons trained on the Empire's dropship. It was a rescue. Vena's eyes widened in recognition. They came. The Empire's dropship hesitated for a moment, but it was too late. The larger ship fired, sending a powerful blast that struck the Empire's ship directly. It exploded in a flash of light, sending debris flying through the sky. "We're safe," Leo breathed, his voice filled with relief. Vena smiled faintly, her eyes still locked on the controls. "For now. But we're not out of the woods yet." The larger ship pulled alongside them, its hull marking it as a warship of Vena's people. It was an imposing sight, its dark metal glinting in the light. The hatch opened, and a figure stepped forward. Vena's people had arrived.